Hello everybody, my name is Albert and I'd like to welcome you to my channel where we lovingly throw your favorite books into the holy fire to see if they burn like trash or come out unscathed, as all true masterpieces should. The ritual will be performed at the end of the video. Today we are opening our series of discussions on the most disappointing science fiction books of all time. Please welcome our guest Lassie, who provided our today's book of choice for the trial.
Thank you for having me here.
Now, Lassie, would you be so kind to reveal your pick?
Sure. Brace yourself, folks. God knows, I almost feel ashamed to reveal my
Go on,
pick
Lassie. Nobody's gonna judge you, except for the thousands of enraged and insulted book fans.
Well, it is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K.
The Left Hand of Darkness. A contentious choice indeed.
Yes, I imagine it would be very divisive. Many of my wonderful friends have highly praised the novel, and boy oh boy did I open the book with great expectations.
And as we know, high expectations are indeed a necessary requirement for the book to be truly disappointing. So, Lassie, tell us, what did and what did not work for you in this novel? Oh, and before we begin, please remember to keep our discussion spoiler-free so that our viewers could later read the book and experience the disappointment on their own.
Sure, Albert. Well, in most general terms, the book is about an envoy from an interstellar or perhaps an even intergalactic conglomerate of planets who is sent to the planet of Guin, also known as Winter, to invite them to join the Union. Guin inhabitants, although human-like in almost every aspect, exhibit a very peculiar sexual organization. Namely, they are hermaphrodites. During the mating period, any person can manifest themselves as either male or female. Thus, on this planet, the same individual may bear a child in one relationship, manifesting themselves as a female, and then play a male role in another relationship, only contributing to childbearing during the moment of conception.
Interesting.
Yes, and I should say the planet itself is quite unique, being, one might say, a dialectic counterpart of Arrakis, the planet depicted in Frank Herbert's Dune. It is equally harsh, but instead of heat and sand, it features freezing cold, snow, and ice.
And what does it feature instead of the famous sandworms, may I ask?
Instead of sandworms, it features an almost complete absence of animal life, making Ursula K.'s world a bit more stern and grim, less adventurous, but perhaps more realistic.
Well, it sounds like an interesting premise. Now tell us, what made it so disappointing for you?
My first major gripe is the main protagonist. We are following an extremely passive person who throughout the whole novel essentially does not take any action of his own accord. He barely, if ever, makes decisions, and when that happens, he does so in a negative sense. He decides not to do this and that, or not to deviate from one prescribed course of action or another. He drifts along the flow of plot-propelling circumstances, which sometimes gets him in trouble and sometimes gets him out of it. In my opinion, this often makes the novel almost unreadable.
But have you considered that perhaps you are a man of action, Lassie, and simply find such a character unrelatable? But that is surely not a universal law that makes the character objectively bad. Besides, this passivity is a consequence of the world building done by Ursula K. In this world, the policy of the Galactic Union, as you remember, is that there must be no compulsion towards joining the said union. The role of the envoy who comes to the planet alone and unarmed is that of making a proposition to the local government and simply observing the results. The passive behavior of the envoy is then nothing but a logical, almost inevitable consequence of the setting.
I must strongly disagree here. While indeed a character may be more relatable to some people than others, it is writer's advice 101 that, passive observers are not a good choice for the main character. Now, you can say that Ursula K, being a renowned and experienced author, has the right to transcend this pedestrian novice advice. But for me, in doing so, she transcended large portions of her narrative into transcendental boredom. And that, I think, makes them objectively bad. What makes it worse is that oftentimes other novice advice, such as having clear goals in the plot and progression towards them, were also thrown out of the window. And by the way, there is a beautifully written part. It describes a journey through the snow and ice where two protagonists, there is a second protagonist that is a little bit better, but doesn't really compensate the first one. So anyways, the two protagonists are journeying through the snow, and this is an exception that reinforces the rule, because that part of the book did have clear goals, did have active actions on part of the protagonists, and that part was enjoyable and really fun to read. So overall, no. I think that her choice of a passive protagonist is objectively bad. It's not just a matter of taste. Now, onto your second point about this character being a consequence of the world building that Ursula K did. I disagree on two counts. First, nobody had forced her to construct this world and not another. She, as a writer, has absolute freedom and perhaps an obligation to construct worlds that are not only interesting from some abstract or moral or intellectual standpoint, but also provide material for an enjoyable, well-crafted story. Secondly, even if it is crucial to keep the Union as passive and non-intrusive as possible for her multi-book universe, she could still have made the character individually more active. It might have been an envoy who partially disagrees with the overly restrictive policy of the Union, or at least we may have seen him in some dangerous or stressful situations that are not governed by the policy.
Well, let the holy fire be the judge. Now, as you surely remember, the book is considered a groundbreaking contribution to the movement of feminist literature and has had a huge cultural impact. Considering when it was written, the ideas Guin explored here, one might say, are groundbreaking when it comes to the exploration of femininity, masculinity, and the relations between the two. Doesn't it justify making your assessment at least a little bit more favorable?
I'm glad that you brought it up. And no, I believe that on the contrary, that was one of the most disappointing aspects of the book. Before reading it, I've read some reviews glorifying The Left Hand of Darkness as an outstanding analysis of the topic of sex and gender and whatnot. I've been reading the book waiting to find some eye-opening ideas. The further I read, however, the more I realized that none were coming. The book offers a few poorly justified stereotypes, such as that a feminine society cannot be aroused to a full-scale war, for example, and thus resorts to local bickering or assassinations. And a few obvious observations, such as there would be no gender discrimination in a hermaphrodite society. The culture depicted in the novel is unusual, but I haven't found it compelling to the extent where it would provide any useful insight into our world. Now, I'm not in a position to judge the book's cultural impact. This could be a topic for a separate discussion. Thankfully, it doesn't matter much. I believe that in order to rise to greatness, it is not enough for a book to be published in the right time and place and to say culturally relevant things. In order to be great, the book must also be a stellar piece of writing on its own. For example, Dr. King's speech is great not only because it was the right time for somebody to convey the message, it was also great because its opening lines are a true demonstration of a public speaking genius. Cultural relevance does not make a work of art great, it only makes it culturally relevant. Some may argue that this is part of greatness, but it's surely not all of it. The Left Hand of Darkness may have been culturally important, but it still leaves it a disappointing book.
All right, Lassie, we've heard your arguments. Now you can calm down a little bit, take a deep breath. Do you maybe have anything positive to say about the book?
Of course. As you understand, a disappointing book is not the same as a bad book. Ursula K is respected as an author for a good reason. Her prose, although somewhat laborious at times for my taste, has its moments of absolute beauty. Her world building is immersive, immense, and believable. And as I mentioned, when stars align, so to speak, some parts of the book offer a very memorable and enjoyable read.
Thank you, Lassie. You've been so critical of the book, I was beginning to worry you won't find any positives at all. I am glad you managed to give it a few concessions. Are you now ready for the ritual? Oh, yes, I am. All right. Now please throw the book into the holy fire to reveal whether the master of our universe agrees with your scathing review and burns the book to ashes. If, however, the book survives the fire, that would mean that the master was mollified, appeased, and convinced by my attempts to defend the novel. It would also mean that you, Lassie, were perhaps a bit too rash in your judgment. The holy fire has spoken. Ashes and dust
I knew that.
are all that's left.
Told you.
Do you agree with the holy fire? Let us know in the comments.